The final challenge arena was the largest yet. Hundreds of aliens filled the viewing areas. Even species that rarely left their homeworlds had sent representatives to watch. In the center of the arena stood two clear pods. Inside each was a command chair surrounded by floating screens and controls. The strategic simulation will test your ability to command forces in battle, explained the council leader. Each competitor will defend against an attacking force with limited resources. Vic stood tall, his confidence returned. This simulation is based on the Battle of Krell 7, where Exceltary forces defeated an enemy fleet 3 times their size. June studied the pods. Last night, he had read everything Earth knew about Exceltary battle tactics. He had also studied something that Exceltary wouldn't expect: ancient human military history. The rules are simple, continued the council leader. You must survive for 1 standard hour against the attacking force. If your command center is destroyed, you lose. If you survive, you win. Mai gave June a final piece of advice before he entered his pod. Remember that Exceltary value perfect formation and textbook maneuvers. They expect everyone to fight the same way they do. June nodded. Humans have never been good at fighting by the book. Inside the pod, Jun settled into the command chair. The screens lit up around him, showing a space battlefield. He had a small fleet of defender ships around a central command station. In the distance, a much larger attack fleet was approaching. The simulation began. Jun quickly assessed his forces and the terrain of space around him. There were several asteroid fields and a nearby nebula that interfered with sensors. On the main screen, he could see Vix in the other pod, confidently arranging his ships in perfect defensive formations. The Exceltary was following standard doctrine, exactly as expected. Jun did something completely different. He split his forces into small groups and scattered them. Then he sent his command station directly into the nebula where it would be hard to detect. "What is the human doing?" asked one of the commentators. "His forces are divided. He's breaking all standard rules of fleet defense." Jun smiled. He was thinking of Admiral Yi Sun-sin, a Korean naval commander from Earth's past who had won against impossible odds by using the environment and unconventional tactics. The attacking fleet approached Vix's position first. The Exceltary defended well, his ships in perfect formation. But slowly, the attacker's superior numbers began to overwhelm him. Meanwhile, Jun's scattered ships launched quick hit-and-run attacks from multiple directions. They struck the attacker's flanks, then disappeared into the asteroid fields or the nebula. "The human is using primitive guerrilla tactics," said a Exceltary observer with disdain. "Primitive but effective," noted another alien. "The attack fleet is dividing to chase his forces." 30 minutes into the simulation, Vix was fighting desperately as attackers broke through his defenses. His perfect formation was falling apart. Jun's command station remained hidden in the nebula while his small ship groups continued their harassment attacks. When the attackers sent ships to find his command center, Jun laid traps using the asteroids and the nebula's energy discharges. "He's using the environment itself as a weapon," said an impressed observer. With 10 minutes remaining, Vix's command center came under direct attack. Despite his skill, the overwhelming force broke through. His simulation ended in defeat. All eyes turned to Jun's screen. His forces were still fighting, the command center still secure in its hiding place. When the final countdown ended, the arena erupted in cheers and shocked exclamations. A human had survived the impossible simulation. Earth had won the Trellanor challenge. As Jun exited his pod, he saw Vix standing in stunned silence. "How?" the Exceltary finally asked. "No one has ever survived that simulation." Jun smiled. "You expected me to fight like Exceltary. I fought like a human instead." The next morning, Jun sat before a strange game board. It floated in the air, with pieces that glowed different colors. Across from him, Vix looked confident. "Ztek has been played by Exceltary for 10,000 years. Vix announced to the watching crowd. "I have been a master for 50 years. The human has never played before." This was true. June had spent the night learning the basic rules from May, but he had never actually played a full game. "The mind challenge will now begin," said the council leader. "The game ends when one player captures the other's central piece, or when both players agree to a draw." Hyun stood behind June, looking worried. Just before the game started, he touched a small device behind June's ear. "What is that?" demanded one of the Salteri officials. "A standard human neural implant," Hyun explained. "All our diplomats have them." The Salteri official frowned. "Is it giving him the answers?" Mai stepped forward. "No, human neural implants don't work that way. They only help with learning speed and memory. The ambassador still must understand and play the game himself." After some argument, the Salteri allowed it. The game began. Vix moved first, his four hands quickly shifting pieces across the board. Some pieces passed through each other in ways that seemed impossible. The board itself sometimes changed colors or shifted levels. June studied each move carefully. The game was strange, but he began to see patterns. It reminded him of chess, but also of poker and even rock, paper, scissors. There was an element of chance mixed with skill. "He's trying to trap your flank pieces," Hyun whispered, "having watched me play the night before." June nodded. Instead of defending as Vix expected, he pushed forward aggressively. The Salteri looked surprised. "An interesting move," commented one of the alien observers. "Not traditional, but effective." As the game continued, June relied on his neural implant to remember the complex rules. But his strategy came from human game theory. Centuries of chess, Go, and other strategic games had taught humans to think in unique ways. 2 hours passed. The crowd grew larger. Alien diplomats who had never shown interest in humans before came to watch. They whispered in surprise as June held his own against the Salteri master. "You play," unexpectedly, Vix said, his confidence fading. "Your moves don't follow any standard pattern." June smiled. "Humans invented thousands of different games on Earth. We learn to adapt quickly to new rules." Vix's pieces surrounded June's central piece, but June had set a trap. When Vix moved in for the final capture, June revealed his strategy. His pieces weren't scattered randomly. They formed a hidden pattern that now sprang into action. "Counter pattern," gasped an observer. He used the quantum uncertainty to mask his true position. Vix frantically tried to recover, but his carefully built strategy was falling apart. After several more moves, neither player could gain an advantage. "I offer a draw," Vix finally said, his voice stiff with frustration. The crowd went silent. A non-Salteri player achieving a draw in Tech was unheard of. "I accept," Jum said, extending his hand in the human gesture of goodwill. This time, after a moment's hesitation, Vix took it. As they stood, the council leader floated between them. "The mental challenge ends in a draw. This is unprecedented." Mai approached June as they left the game area. "Well done. A draw is a victory when you were expected to lose badly." "What happens now?" June asked. "Now it gets interesting," Mai said. "The score is 1 win for Earth and 1 draw. The final challenge will decide everything." Day joined them, her face serious. "And the Salteri will be desperate to win. They've lost too much face already. Be careful, Ambassador." June nodded. "After facing their physical and mental challenges, I'm ready for whatever comes next." "Don't be too confident," Mai warned. "The strategic simulation is their specialty. They've never lost it. Not once in 500 years. News of June's victory spread quickly through the space station. As he walked back to the Earth Embassy, aliens stopped to look at him. Some nodded with respect. Others whispered to each other. "You've caused quite a stir, Ambassador," said Hyun, who was almost running to keep up with June's long strides. No one expected a human to win the physical challenge. June smiled. That was the point. The Salteri wanted to show everyone how weak humans are. It backfired. When they reached the embassy, they found Dai waiting with a serious look on her face. The security chief had been busy while June was competing. "We have a problem," she said once the door closed behind them. "The Xeltari delegation is claiming you cheated." June frowned. "How could I have cheated? Everyone was watching." Day pointed to his suit. "They're saying your suit gave you special advantages. They want it examined." "That's ridiculous," Hyun said. "It's just a standard variable gravity suit. Many species use them." "I know," Dad agreed, "but the Xeltari are angry. They've never lost the physical challenge to an off-worlder before." June sat down heavily in a chair. "Let them examine the suit. They won't find anything wrong with it." He reached for a water bottle and drank deeply. "What else is happening?" Day pulled up images on the wall screen. They showed Xeltari ships in space. "While going through station security feeds, I found something interesting. The Xeltari have been stopping Earth cargo ships in the Orient sector. They searched them for hours, making them late for deliveries. That's why our traders have been losing contracts," Jun realized. "Customers don't want suppliers who can't deliver on time." "Exactly," Daz said. "The Xeltari pretend to be friendly in council meetings, but they're working against us in secret." The door chimed. When it opened, a tall, elegant woman with gray-streaked hair stood there. This was Mai, a senior diplomat from Earth who had arrived on the morning shuttle. "Ambassador June," she said with a smile. "It seems I've arrived at an exciting time." June stood to greet her. "Ambassador Mai, I didn't expect you until next week. Earth Command sent me early when they heard about your challenge," Mai explained. "They're quite concerned and impressed." Mai had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had helped Earth join the Galactic Council 10 years ago. If she was here, Earth was taking the situation very seriously. "The second challenge is tomorrow," June told her. "The mental test." Mai nodded. "I've been studying the Xeltari game of tech for years. It's fascinating. Similar to chess, but with quantum elements that make it unpredictable. Can you teach me enough to have a chance?" June asked. "Perhaps," Mai said thoughtfully. "But more importantly, I've discovered something you should know. This challenge has become the most watched event in Galactic Council history." "What?" June was shocked. Mai smiled. "Many species have felt bullied by the Xeltari for centuries. They're secretly cheering for you, Ambassador." Hyun's datapad beeped. He read the message and looked up in surprise. 3 different alien delegations have asked for meetings with us. They've never wanted to meet before. "You see," Mai said, "this challenge is changing how they view humans. Win or lose, you've already shown them we can't be dismissed." Day's security alert went off next. "The Xeltari delegation is coming this way. 6 of them, including Ambassador Vix." June stood up straight. "Good. Let's see what they want. Remember," Mai cautioned, "in diplomacy, angry opponents often make mistakes. Stay calm and watch for opportunities." "I'll try," June said as the door chimed again. "But I've never been good at hiding my feelings." "That's actually an advantage right now," Mai told him quietly. "The Xeltari need to see that humans don't fear them." The main council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every species in the Galactic Council stood or floated or perched wherever they could find space. At the center of the room, June and Vix faced the council leader. "The Tralinar challenge is complete," announced the jellyfish-like leader, its body glowing with formal colors. "For the first time in recorded history, a non-Xeltari competitor has succeeded. Earth has won with 2 victories and 1 draw." The chamber filled with sounds. Cheers, clicks, whistles, and hums from dozens of different species. The Xeltari delegation stood stiffly, their pride visibly wounded. "As is tradition," continued the council leader, "the victor may claim a reasonable request from the defeated." All eyes turned to June. This was the moment that would define Earth's future in galactic politics. Mai and Hyun stood behind him, ready with data if he needed it. Dai watched carefully from the side, monitoring the Celtari for any signs of trouble. June spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Earth requests open access to all trade routes currently controlled by the Celtari, and representation on the Trade Council equal to the Celtari position. Whispers spread through the chamber. This was a significant request, but not excessive. It would change the balance of power, but not destroy the Celtari influence completely. Vix stepped forward, his 6 eyes fixed on June. Before I respond, I must know. How did you do it? How did a species new to space defeat the Celtari in our own challenge? June smiled. He was relaxed now, having enjoyed a proper meal before this meeting. It's simple, Ambassador Vix. You made a basic mistake in your understanding of humans. Explain, demanded Vix. You scheduled our first meeting before lunch, June said. Everyone watched in confusion as he continued. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a harsh planet. Food was never guaranteed. Our bodies and minds are designed to function under stress and hunger. He took a step toward Vix. When humans are hungry, we don't become weak. We become focused, determined, sometimes irritable. It's a survival trait from our past. You're saying your victory was because you were hungry? Asked a council member in disbelief. Not entirely, June chuckled, but it shows how the Celtari fundamentally misunderstood humans. You thought scheduling meetings before meals would weaken us. Instead, it made me more determined to win. Mai stepped forward. There's a human saying, never stand between a human and their food, their young, or their home. The Celtari did all three, blocking our food shipments, threatening our future generations with isolation, and trying to restrict our home territory in space. Vix was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he made a gesture that Celtari rarely showed to other species, a deep bow of respect. The Celtari accept Earth's terms, he said formally. You have won fairly, against all expectations. We will honor the victory. The council leader's colors shifted to bright blue. It is decided. Earth will join the Trade Council with status equal to the Celtari. All routes will be open to Earth ships effective immediately. Later, at the Earth Embassy, the human team celebrated quietly. Their small mission had achieved in 3 days what might have taken decades of normal diplomacy. You took a huge risk accepting that challenge, Mai told June. Earth Command is still trying to understand how you pulled it off. June smiled. Sometimes you have to follow your instincts. I knew the Celtari were underestimating us. All I did was prove them wrong. Day raised her glass in a toast. To humanity showing the galaxy what we can do. And to never challenging a human before lunch, added Hyun with a laugh. Outside their window, ships from a dozen worlds moved through space. Among them were new Earth vessels, now free to travel routes that had been closed to them before. The galaxy had just become a little smaller for humanity. 1 month after the Tralinor challenge, the Galactic Council space station looked very different. The Earth Embassy had moved to a larger section, with windows facing the beautiful blue-green planet below. New staff had arrived from Earth to handle the sudden increase in diplomatic relations. June stood by the window, watching Earth ships move freely through space alongside alien vessels. The victory had changed everything. Ambassador, your meeting is in 10 minutes. Hyun reminded him, looking up from his datapad. Thank you, Jung said. Is everything ready for the trade conference next week? Yes, sir. 17 species have confirmed their attendance. It's the largest trade meeting Earth has ever hosted. June nodded, pleased but not surprised. Since the challenge, Earth had signed agreements with species that had previously ignored human diplomats. Earth goods were flowing through routes that had been closed before. Earth companies were working with alien businesses on new technologies. The door opened, and Mai entered with a group of new diplomats. They had just arrived from Earth for training. And this is Ambassador June, Mai told them. The man who changed our place in the galaxy. June smiled politely. I just took a challenge. It was Earth's scientists, traders, and workers who proved we deserve our place here. After answering the new diplomat's questions, June left for his meeting. As he walked through the station hallways, aliens of all kinds nodded respectfully to him. Some even used the human gesture of a handshake when he passed. The meeting room was smaller than the main council chamber, but still impressive. Waiting inside was Ambassador Vix. Ambassador June. The Exceltary greeted him. "Thank you for coming." "Of course," June replied, taking the seat. On the table between them was a selection of foods, some human, some Celtary. This had become their new tradition. Once each week, June and Vix met for a meal together. They discussed their cultures, solved small problems before they became big ones, and slowly built understanding between their species. "I have been studying human history," Vix said as they began to eat. "Your people have fought many wars among yourselves." June nodded. "Too many, but we learned from them." "My analysts said this was a weakness," Vix admitted. "But now I see it was strength. Humans understand conflict in ways the Celtary never could. We have been united for too long." "Unity is good," June said, "but sometimes challenging each other leads to growth." Vix's 6 eyes blinked in agreement. Like our challenge led to better understanding. After the meal, June returned to the Earth Embassy to find Dai waiting with news. "Earth Command is impressed with our progress," she reported. "They're sending 5 more diplomatic teams to other galactic sectors." "Good," June said. "There's a whole galaxy waiting for us." Hyun entered with a data pad. "I've completed the report on the Traulimer challenge for the diplomatic archives. I called it the Hangry Human Incident." June laughed. "Future diplomats will think you're joking." "I included video proof," Hyun assured him. "No one will make the same mistake again." That evening, June hosted a dinner for representatives from 12 species. As they ate, a small green Mern diplomat asked a question. "Ambassador June, what is the secret to human success? Is it your technology? Your physical strength?" June thought for a moment. "No, it's simpler than that. Humans are good at 2 things that seem opposite: working together and competing fiercely." "I don't understand," said the Mern. "Humans will fight each other endlessly," June explained. "But when faced with an outside challenge, we unite. We cooperate better because we understand competition, and we compete better because we know how to work together." He raised his glass in a toast. "The real secret is that humans never stop trying to be better tomorrow than we are today, especially after a good lunch." The aliens laughed, and the dinner continued. Outside the windows, Earth ships prepared for journeys to distant stars. The challenge had opened the door. Now humanity would walk through it, into the waiting galaxy. The end. The Earth Embassy was busier than ever. Aliens from 12 different species waited in the reception area. They all wanted to meet with Ambassador June. "This is amazing," Han said as he managed the visitor list. "Last week, we couldn't get anyone to return our calls." June sat with Mai in the small conference room. They were discussing the final challenge, which would take place the next day. "The strategic simulation is based on famous Celtary military victories," Mai explained. "They program it to be nearly impossible to win." "So they cheat," June said simply. Mai smiled. "They would say they create a proper challenge. But yes, essentially they cheat." The door opened, and Day entered with a small green alien. This was Krell, from a species called the Mern. The Mern controlled many mining planets near Earth space. "Ambassador June," Krell said in a high musical voice, "my people have watched your challenge with great interest." June offered a seat to the small alien. "I'm glad to hear that. Earth has been trying to establish mining agreements with the Mern for years." "Yes, but the Celtary always told us humans were unreliable," Krell said. "Now we see they were wrong." This was interesting news. June exchanged glances with Mai. "The Celtary have been speaking against us," Mai asked carefully. Krell's large eyes blinked. "To everyone. They say humans are dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable. Many believed them. And now, June asked, "Now we see that Selteri feared you because you are strong," Krell said. "My people would like to discuss those mining agreements again." After Krell left, 5 more delegations came with similar stories. The Selteri had been working against Earth everywhere, blocking trade, spreading rumors, and preventing alliances. "This challenge has exposed their game," Mai said when they finally had a moment alone. The Selteri saw humans as a threat from the beginning. June nodded. "Because we advance quickly. Other species take thousands of years to develop new technology. Humans do it in decades." "Exactly," Mai agreed. "They wanted to keep us isolated until they could control us." A message appeared on the screen. The Selteri delegation was requesting an urgent meeting. "They're getting nervous," Daz said. "Word is spreading that their tricks have been exposed." Jim straightened his uniform. "Let's hear what they have to say." When Vix entered with 3 other Selteri, he looked less confident than before. His blue skin seemed paler. "Ambassador June," he said stiffly, "my government suggests we end this challenge now. We can call it a draw. No need for the final test." June raised an eyebrow. "A draw? I won the first challenge. The second was a draw. By any counting, Earth is ahead." Vix's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. "We offer full support for your trade route request. The Orion sector will be open to Earth ships immediately." Mai stepped forward. "And the other routes you've been blocking? The Centauri path, the Rigel shipping lanes." The Selteri looked startled. They hadn't known Earth was aware of these other blockades. "We can discuss all trade matters," Vix said carefully. June pretended to consider the offer, but he had already decided. "Thank you, Ambassador Vix, but I will complete the challenge as agreed." After the Selteri left, Mai looked at June with new respect. "That was well played. They offered you exactly what you originally wanted, and you refused." "Because now we can get much more," Jum said. "If I win the final challenge, the Selteri will be forced to deal with Earth as equals." "And if you lose?" Day asked quietly. June smiled. "Then we still win. Everyone has seen that humans can compete with the Selteri. Their mystique is broken forever." May nodded in agreement. "You've changed the game, Ambassador. No matter what happens tomorrow, Earth's position in the Galactic Council is stronger than ever." "Good," Jum said, "because tomorrow will be the hardest test yet." "Ambassador, please eat something while I explain how bad this is," Hyun said, pushing a tray of food toward June. They sat in the small Earth embassy room. It was the only place on the massive space station that had human food. June grabbed a sandwich and bit into it hungrily. "Tell me everything about this Tralnor challenge," Jun said between bites. Hyun pulled up information on his screen. His face was serious. "The Tralnor is an ancient Selteri tradition. It has 3 parts: physical, mental, and strategic." June nodded, already feeling better as food entered his system. "That doesn't sound too bad." "It is bad," Hyun insisted. "The Selteri designed each test to favor their own strengths. The physical test takes place in changing gravity fields. The Selteri come from a high-gravity world, so they have an advantage." June thought about his years training for Mars missions. Humans were good at adapting to different gravity. Maybe this wasn't hopeless. "What about the other tests?" he asked. "The second test is a game called Stek. It's like chess, but with quantum elements. Ambassador Vix is a master player." Hyun looked more worried. "The third test is a battle simulation based on famous Selteri victories." June finished his sandwich and reached for a cup of coffee. The hot liquid cleared his mind. "Has anyone ever beaten them?" "No non-Selteri has ever won a full Tralnor," Hyun admitted. "Most species refuse to participate. That's why everyone was shocked when you accepted." A soft beep came from the door. It slid open to reveal a small green alien with large eyes. This was Mick, An assistant to the council leader, Ambassador June, Mick said in a high voice. The council is buzzing with news of your challenge. Many are placing bets on how quickly you will lose. June sipped his coffee. Are any betting that I might win? Mick made a sound like gentle bells. It was alien laughter. No, Ambassador, but some are impressed by your courage. After Mick left, June stood up and walked to the window. The space station hung above a beautiful blue-green planet. Stars filled the view beyond. Send a message to Earth Command, June told Hyun. Tell them what's happening, but assure them I have a plan. Do you have a plan? Hyun asked. June smiled. I'm working on it. What else do we know about the Xeltari? Hyun consulted his notes. They're prideful and traditional. They believe their way is always best, and they hate to be surprised. Good, June said. Surprises are one thing humans are excellent at. The door opened again. This time it was Da, the Earth Station's security chief. She was tall with short black hair and a serious face. Ambassador, I've been speaking with other species security teams, she reported. The Xeltari have been secretly blocking our trade ships while smiling in council meetings. June's eyes narrowed. So this isn't just about pride. It's about keeping humans contained. It seems that way, Da agreed. They fear our rapid progress. Most species take thousands of years to reach space. We did it in a few hundred. June finished his coffee. His mind was clear now, and his stomach was full. He felt ready. When does the first challenge begin? He asked. Tomorrow at Station Dawn, Hyun said. The Xeltari deliberately scheduled it early, hoping you'll be tired. June laughed. They don't understand humans very well, do they? We've been dealing with early mornings and night shifts since the Industrial Revolution. Day smiled. What should I tell our people watching this? June looked out at the stars again. Tell them to pay attention. The Xeltari are about to learn an important lesson about humanity. What lesson is that? Hyun asked. Never challenge a human, June said with a grin, especially before lunch. Station Dawn came too early. June had slept better than the night before, but still not enough. He dressed in the special suit Earth had designed for variable gravity environments. It was black with blue stripes and the Earth flag on the shoulder. When he arrived at the challenge arena, hundreds of aliens were watching from viewing areas. Screens floated in the air, showing close-up views for small species who couldn't see well from a distance. Ambassador June, Vix greeted him with a slight bow. The Xeltari wore a tight-fitting purple suit that showed off his 4 muscular arms. I hope you slept well. Well enough, June replied. He had made sure to eat a good breakfast and bring an energy bar that Hyun had given him. The council leader floated down between them. The first challenge is the path of changing worlds. You will race through 10 sections, each with different gravity. The first to complete the course wins this round. June looked at the course. It was a long tunnel with clear walls. Signs showed the gravity level in each section, ranging from very light to very heavy. Xeltari evolved on a high-gravity world. Vix said loudly for the audience to hear. Humans come from a low-gravity planet. This will be educational for everyone. June said nothing. He knew Earth was actually middle range in gravity compared to most inhabited worlds, and he had trained extensively in different gravity environments for the Mars missions. They took their positions at the starting line. June looked up and saw Hyun and Da watching anxiously from the human section. Begin, announced the council leader. The first section was low gravity, about like the moon. Vix pushed off hard and shot forward, using all 4 arms to pull himself along handholds on the walls. June moved more carefully, using the low-gravity skipping technique that lunar colonists had perfected. By the second section, Vix was far ahead. The audience cheered for the Xeltari, but June kept his steady pace. The third section increased to Earth normal gravity. June felt at home and increased his speed. Vix slowed slightly but still maintained his lead. By the fifth section, with gravity nearly double Earth's, Vix was starting to show signs of tiring. He had gone too fast in the early sections. June, who had paced himself like a marathon runner, began to catch up. "The human is using an unusual strategy," commented one of the announcers. "He is not sprinting but maintaining a steady pace." The seventh section had triple Earth gravity. Every step was like carrying two people on his back. June's legs burned with effort, but his training helped. Vix was only a few steps ahead now. In the eighth section, June finally passed Vix. The Xelteri looked shocked. He had never been overtaken in a physical challenge before. "Impossible," Vix gasped, his breathing heavy. The ninth section reduced to very low gravity again. June had to be careful not to bounce too high and lose control. Vix made a desperate push, using his last energy to catch up. They entered the final section side by side. The gravity shifted randomly here, changing every few seconds. June felt his stomach lurch with each change, but he kept moving forward. With the finish line just ahead, Vix stumbled as gravity suddenly increased. June managed 2 more steps and crossed the line first. The arena went silent. Then murmurs spread through the crowd. A human had won the physical challenge. June bent over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. When he stood up, he offered a hand to Vix, who was still recovering. "How?" Vix asked, ignoring the outstretched hand. June smiled. "Humans are persistence hunters. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we can keep going when others need to rest." He pulled out his energy bar and took a bite. "And we always come prepared for a long race." June walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council space station with red eyes and a growling stomach. He had not slept well. He had not eaten. And worst of all, he had not had his morning coffee. "Ambassador June, you are 4 minutes late," said a tall blue alien with 6 eyes. This was Vix, the Xelteri ambassador. June forced a smile. "My apologies. The Earth shuttle had some technical issues." The truth was that June had spent the night reviewing Earth's trade agreements. As the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council, everything he did mattered. One mistake could cost Earth valuable allies. The meeting room was huge. 12 different alien species sat around a large U-shaped table. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that June still couldn't tell their front from their back. "Please sit, Ambassador," said the council leader, a gentle floating creature that looked like a jellyfish. "We were discussing the new trade routes." June nodded and took his seat. The Earth chair was too small. Humans were taller than most species had expected. He shifted uncomfortably and pulled out his datapad. "Before we continue," Vix said suddenly, "I would like to know why humans think they deserve the Orion trade route. Your species has only been in space for 200 years. The Xelteri have controlled these routes for 2,000. June's stomach growled again. He had been warned about the Xelteri. They were proud and saw humans as backward newcomers. "The route passes closest to Earth's space," June explained simply. "It would benefit all species to have faster transport of Earth goods." Vix made a sound like a snort. "Earth goods? You mean your primitive metals and your strange plant foods?" Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Xelteri were known for starting arguments. "Those strange plant foods include coffee, which half the council now imports," Jum said, wishing he had some right now. His head was pounding. Vix stood up. All 4 of his arms moved in a formal pattern. "Perhaps the human would like to prove Earth's worthiness. I propose a Trallnor challenge." The room went silent. June didn't know what a Trallnor was, but he recognized a challenge when he heard one. The Jellyfish Council leader floated higher. "Ambassador Vix, that is not necessary. The trade routes are decided by location and efficiency, not challenges. It is the Xelteri way," Vix insisted. "If humans want to be taken seriously, they should be willing to prove themselves." June's datapad lit up with a message from his assistant, Hyun. Do note AACCEP. Trelnor is a three-part contest. No non-Exceltary has ever won. But June's military training kicked in. Back in the Korean Space Force, he had learned one important rule: never show weakness, especially when outnumbered. His empty stomach burned. His head throbbed from lack of sleep. And now this blue six-eyed alien was trying to humiliate Earth in front of the entire Galactic Council. "I accept your challenge," Jum said, standing up to his full height. He was a head taller than Vix, which seemed to surprise the alien. Gasps echoed around the room. Even Vix looked shocked. He clearly hadn't expected June to accept. "Very well," Vix said after a moment. "The Trelnor will begin tomorrow at first light. 3 tests: body, mind, and strategy." As the meeting ended, aliens rushed out, already spreading the news. A human had accepted the Trelnor. Hyun, a short man with worried eyes, hurried to June's side. "Ambassador, do you know what you've done? The Exceltary have been winning these challenges for centuries." June finally allowed himself to frown. "What I've done is buy us time, and hopefully taught them not to underestimate humans." He checked his watch. "Now please tell me the Earth Embassy has food. I need lunch before I can deal with any more of this." Hyun shook his head. "That's exactly the problem, sir. The Exceltary always challenge others before meals. They know most species think poorly when hungry." "Well," June said with a grim smile, "they're about to learn that hungry humans don't get weak. We get angry."